Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. In the house tonight is Robbie Rip Rains coming to us from the wilderness of South Carolina, and we've got Wyatt and Richard joining us tonight. You guys have heard us talk about Wyatt and Richard. You've seen them in the chat a number of times, probably pretty much every time, and they were part of the expedition into Coombs Ferry, but they also have done a lot of their own research in the area around Table Rock Lake and in Arkansas and southern Missouri, and they've got some great stories to share with us. So I was pretty excited about having these guys on the show. I've been planning to do it for a while, and we finally made it happen. So, boys, thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
Hey, no problem. And for the folks, in case you're confused by the wording, Wyatt's on the right and Richard's on the left. The names are kind of reversed.
We can switch chairs if we need to.
we could easily just switch the words too. That's pretty easy to do.
Well, Richard's on the side. He's on the side he was when he was driving the boat. So
that's true. That is a fact.
He's in the position he was last time I saw him.
Boys, I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, I had real good ones.
You guys eat enough to get you full?
Still eating.
Yep. Like I said, I had to take the belt off one time. So
I told Annette that I was probably going to have to wear sweatpants for a few days.
nothing wrong with that.
I hope everybody out there had a good holiday as well. It's it's that time of year where the holiday season getting a little hectic, and I certainly wouldn't have gotten within 2 miles of a freaking Walmart yesterday. I don't know if any of y'all did any Black Friday shopping, but no, thank you.
Nope.
We
didn't most of our shopping on Amazon this year.
I did mine on Palmetto State Armory.
There you go. Santa bringing you a little pew pew for your stocking.
It's from the wife, but it's from me.
Heck yeah. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's going to be a few of them things floating around.
You're all welcome.
Yeah, Robbie started it, so. So, Richard, Wyatt, why don't you guys start out, introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves, and tell us what got you into Bigfoot and other cryptids.
You want to go first? You want me?
Can barely hear Richard.
Yeah, I can't hear him.
Me and my son were out fishing one night, and I told him, I said, son, I said, you hit me in the leg with your weight. He said, Dad, my weight's right here. I'm not even out in the water. Shine the light down. There was a rock in the boat. Hit me in the leg and cut my leg. Well, we heard something, kept shining light, never saw anything. So then we were out a couple nights later up in Blair Branch, and that's where we had our first real experience that made me start thinking, hey, there's something out here. We heard trees breaking, snapping, or something walking in the water, and it scared the daylight out of the coyotes. Whatever it was, the coyotes got out of there quick. And it got super quiet. About 20 minutes later, you hear the coyote coming back and hooping and hollering. And whatever this was let out a scream, and them coyotes were gone, and so was I.
Don't blame you.
And then I was telling Wyatt about it, and I'm sure I thought he was going to think I was crazy, but come to find out, he wanted to go out and investigate with me, and it's been there ever since.
How long have you guys been going out?
Oh,
Last year sometime. We the first time we went out together was September of last year. Then we went back second time in October.
I think they've got about as good a chemistry and luck going out as we do, because it seems like they found a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, the area around Table Rock Lake and on the south end of Table Rock Lake is pretty active.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, it's very active.
yeah.
If you take that one trip that we had back to Joe Ball when we tried to go live that night, if you take that one out, that's the only time that we haven't found something.
And that was dead of summer.
Yeah, I think about every time that we went out, we've had something happen. I took one guy out, and we heard something walking up on a hill, snapping branches.
Richard, you're cutting in and out, man.
I wonder which one's them.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you probably have to be a little closer to that microphone on there.
Yeah, I had a guy out and we heard something walking, breaking branches and snapping up on top of the hill, and it whistled. So I whistled back with 2 whistles, and it responded the same. And we could hear it following us as I'm trolling my boat down the bank. Every whistle I did, it did it back. Well, we get to work, and I was telling Wyatt about it, and the guy asked Wyatt, "Was that you walking through the woods? Because there's nothing another way. Nothing else can be in there but a human." I said, "There wasn't no human walking up in the woods at 2 o'clock in the morning out in the middle of nowhere.
Especially without a light."
He ain't been back with me."
What got you into this?
Well, I would say probably it was when I was a little kid when I had my first dose of it. My grandpa, I used to live about 12 miles out on the dirt road at one time. And you can imagine what kind of critters live back in the woods like that. Anyway, the school bus ride was a real long ride. And one day after I got off the school bus, my grandpa was at the house, or he came by. It's like, yeah, I just seen a Bigfoot walk across the road. And I was like 10 years old at the time, maybe a little younger, a little older, I can't remember. But so yeah, that was I don't know if that was my first without hearing about Bigfoot, but that's what caught my interest probably. I didn't really think about it a whole lot growing up, but once I got a little older, my upper teens and early 20s, I watched all the shows, you know. I won't name them, but you know the ones.
Yeah.
Same ones we probably watched.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So that's how I got into it, and that's about all I know to say on that part. But I've had a lot of stuff happen in the past few years.
So, Wyatt, you and I hadn't really got to talk about this. I've told it, but we haven't got to actually talk about this since me and you are the two that found the infamous hide hanging in the tree.
Right.
I want to hear. I'm sure we kind of back and forth a little bit that night, but I really don't remember what we said. What was when I stopped? You said, "Hold on a second," and I turned it on, and you saw that. I want to hear your thoughts from the time my headlight came on and you saw that. What were you thinking? What went through your head?
Permission to cuss, Captain?
I think all means go ahead.
I'm pretty sure I was thinking, holy shit, is what I was thinking. Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's pretty weird. I wasn't as scared as I would have been if I was by myself because we had a bunch of people, but it was still pretty freaky.
And this is a good opportunity because you and I we were just walking along in the complete pitch dark, having a conversation, just talking, having a good time, and I just happened to catch something that was just didn't look right. So this is a good opportunity because, you know, like I said, we never got a chance to really talk to each other about what that inner dialogue was between the two of us, because I was just like, no, there's no way I'm seeing something just hanging in that tree. And and then that was found while me and you were still walking around, because you walked around the tree with me, I think, didn't you? When we
I don't know. I may have walked around the tree. I'm not. I did on one. I remember walking around some trees. I don't know if it was that particular one.
I think you walked around that tree with me because I think you was helping me look to see if there was any kind of claw marks or anything that disturbed it around the ground.
Right.
So,
Rick.
I got a text message that said, "Don't go too far away with that boat because there's something."
Richard, you're cutting out again.
Oh, sorry.
Richard, you're cutting out again pretty bad.
I know what he was thinking because about 2 minutes after he found that, I got a text message that said, "Don't go too far away in that boat because there's something out here."
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Or you should have from Wyatt, and it wasn't Steve that stole his phone and sent you the text message.
Oh yeah, Steve was scared to death.
Because Steve was kind of pretty fit to be tied at that particular moment too when we found that.
Yeah.
Now, like Robbie said, if he could have sprouted wings, he'd have flown back to the car.
The bad part is, I didn't even know that he hurt his leg. He didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
We didn't either. He didn't tell us until we went on the boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nobody, or at least we didn't know how bad it was because until we were right there, just after we passed all that and started finding all that, that's when we came to that spot. DA said, all right, we can start heading back over this way, or we can keep going this way and try to hit the whole island, whole island. And that's when Steve finally said, I'll do what everybody wants to do, but I hurt my leg when I got off the boat. And that was the first, he was kind of walking a little bit slower, but he never voiced, hey, my leg's hurting until that point right there. So
yeah,
that's when everybody knew. Everybody knew at the same time, because that's when he said, well, my leg's hurting. And that's when DA was like, all right, well, if your leg's hurting, let's just go on over here and cut across. And that's when he had him text you, Richard, and had you meet us at the boat ramp instead of going all the way back around where we originally dropped off.
Yeah, we were a long way from where we had originally dropped. We were much closer to that boat ramp.
Yes. I just happened to be around that backside by the boat ramp, so I'm glad I was there because he wanted off that island bad. He didn't want no part of that.
Yeah, he's no longer on the fence.
Yeah, he's
now, buddy.
Sorry, we're having to turn the computer back and forth because my mic must be directly in the center of the computer. So he didn't want. I can't even remember what I was going to say. So he wanted off the island then.
Yeah,
he was done at that point.
Yeah. Oh, he's a believer now. That's what I was going to say.
Well, yeah, and that's. I don't know if you were still standing beside me when he had that little epiphany. Let's just call it. He looked at me. He goes, you remember what I said on the show, right? I'm like, yeah, Steve. He goes, remember what I said about wanting to see a body or needing to see this, needing to see that, He rattled through all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, Steve, I remember all that. He goes, fuck that. I'm done. I got it. I believe it. Let's go. I need to get out of here. And that's pretty much the way he was saying it too. And I'm like, all right, Steve, you're good, buddy. We got you.
We got you, man.
Yeah, I just wish I would have known sooner that way. Because I grabbed his hand and helped him off the boat, and I had no idea that he'd hurt himself.
Well, us old farts, we got to take it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm old enough myself.
But you know what though? That was a good moment as far as just the way everything happened, because that would have been so easy to walk past that. Had me and you not been sitting there, because everybody except me and you walked past it, Wyatt, and had we not been sitting there talking, and I was looking at you because I was trying to see you enough to where if I missed what you said, I was hoping because I could see enough of your face to like catch a word because we were having to talk really, really soft. Had I not been looking at you and just kind of, if we've been talking a little bit louder and then just looking straight ahead, we'd have walked right past that.
No, you're right. We would have. I was looking at you
when things started picking up.
Yeah. And we'd have had no clue why it was picking up. We'd just been like, what the heck happened?
It's a good thing we seen it when we did.
Yeah. If we hadn't have taken pictures of it, there'd be people who wouldn't even believed it. That, it was just something from a mountain lion or something. Well, you had to see how small that tree was to realize that was not something a mountain lion would climb. No. And it took hands to twist that around those branches.
Yeah, because it was pretty much intricately placed on those limbs.
So. Yeah.
But even with the pictures, people still, not so much in our group, but anytime we've shown that picture at other places, that's the first thing out of people's mind. Oh, that's a mountain lion. Until we started showing the picture with Steve in front of the tree, where people can actually see the size of that tree, the size comparison, and then they're like, maybe that wasn't that is kind of a small tree. Because if you just look at the tree it's hard to tell. The picture with just the tree it's hard to tell how small that tree actually is. But you show that picture over Steve's shoulder, whoever took that picture over his shoulder, that's when you can actually see that's a small tree. That's probably not going to support a big cat.
There's a number of times while we were walking through, I could see like dark shadows moving between the trees, but it was never clear enough you could tell what it was. It was just a big dark shadow. But when we started pulling people out on the boat ramp, the less of us there were, the more active shit got.
Well, right before you guys come around that corner, I had that Eyeshine 50 yards from you guys.
When we got on the boat and you backed us out, the Eyeshine was like almost right where we were at.
Yeah, I could come back.
It had moved in much closer.
Yeah, I'm just glad we decided not to leave one person and wait, because I it probably would have got kind of bad.
You probably heard some gunshots before the boat got back.
Yeah. We had a lot of ammo, but I don't know if we had enough if only one person would have got left.
Yeah. Well, I do know now there is a way to get in there overland, but you got to hike.
Is there?
Mm-hmm. They've got it blocked off quite a ways up that peninsula. You can still get in there, but getting in there, especially after dark, it's going to be a truck. I mean, I don't mean like a pickup truck. I mean, you're going to be trucking through the woods.
Right. Yeah. I think you can get so far on land, but then it's it's blocked off like we've seen.
Yeah. Jay Freiberg says, "Why do you not have MVGs? Because I can't afford them." If I had a set, they would have been on me. Believe me.
We had a Psionics, but that's about as much as we can afford, and that's still expensive.
I'm not making the big monies yet.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, even was it the Generation 3? I think this starting to come down. It's still like what, $1,500 to $2,000 for a halfway decent set. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
They're definitely not cheap.
Nah.
They are by no means cheap. So where all on Table Rock Lake have you guys been? Where you've had interesting activity?
Our main ones are Brush Creek and Blair Branch. But we found, Wyatt actually found that one right there where I put the boat in at. That night we dropped you guys off when we went, and then Wyatt sent you that picture of that footprint right there at the boat ramp.
What's that?
That's it?
Clevenger Cove. Yes.
Yeah, after you dropped us off.
That's the second time.
That was the second time we found it back DA. The first time was it's got my wallets inside it. Those are all partials.
Get to that one. There you go.
That's those are the ones that you showed us when we were getting ready to head back to the house that night, DA. You said, look what they found just that, because y'all had already got in the boat and left while we were still in the parking lot.
There.
Yeah, that one right there.
That's the best
Sorry,
one.
I was kind of scrolling through them.
You're good. Yeah, we found that as soon as we got off the boat. I looked at Richard. I'm like, does this look like a trap to you? And so I started taking pictures and sent them to you.
Well, that is definitely a track. I mean, you can see the definition of the toes up here. And if that was like a double step from a bear, the middle toes would be farther forward. This is not a bear track. That looks very much like human toes. It's just, average wallet's what, about 4.5 inches?
Yeah, thereabouts.
So I'd make that probably in the ballpark of 16 inches. That's a big track. Even for a human, that's a damn big track.
And it wasn't there when we put the boat in. But when we came back, and then Wyatt jumped out of the boat, and his foot didn't even come near to the impression that is.
Yeah, I mean, unless you got Shaquille O'Neal out there barefoot where you guys parked the boat, I don't think, that was a bare human print.
No.
And even Shaquille's, foot's probably not quite that big.
But it wouldn't have made an indention. Something very, very, very heavy made that indention. I said,
and that pea gravel, it ain't easy to put an indention like that.
No.
I think I measured my wallet. I think it was 3.5 inches, or it may have been 4.5, but I think it was 3.5. Anyway, whatever it is, it was very heavy because that was pretty deep into the rocks.
Even if it was if the wall was 4 inches, we'll go the middle of it. If it was 4 inches from the height of the toes over here to the bottom of the foot, that'd still be close to 16 inches.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was
That's still big. That's still a big track. So what about?
Go ahead.
Tell us about this picture.
Well, we were. This was a different cove than we normally go in. This is another section of Brush Creek, but where this. You remember not too long ago, DA, when I told you we've seen the 5 sets of Eyeshine,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it may have been a Dogman. Well, that was just past this area on the lake.
Okay.
We pulled up to this. I can't remember if I caught it out of the corner of my eye, but I remember telling Richard, "Hey, turn over here. There's something over here," and we put the light on it, and that's what we picked up. Some sort of a structure. I think me and you had talked about it before, DA.
Yeah.
We came to the conclusion it may be man-made because there was some rope.
It could easily be man-made, but
There was some rope in it. Of course, there's those big bricks. But the funny thing is we found an impression in the soil there, and there was a bunch of clams and stuff that had been eaten, or
mussels.
I know raccoons can eat those too, but something had left a pretty big indentation, and I couldn't get a good picture of it. In the photos I sent you somewhere, I've got the light shining on the ground, and it's just like a circle, and it didn't pick it up very well.
What's weird about that? Did you go back to that picture?
Can you go back to the structure itself?
That branch in the back that's horizontal.
This one?
The one across the back of it.
The very back of it.
Oh, okay.
The one in the middle.
This one?
No, it was
horizontal one. The one you had that
right
one. You put your mouse on.
That was perfectly balanced on a very, very small twig.
Huh.
Perfectly balanced on there. I just touched it and it fell.
Wow.
That's what was bugging us, is how in the world did something get out the balance for so long?
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Hey, DA, I actually, a couple days ago, I was kind of, I got on my photo editor that I've got on my phone, which is just the one that comes with the phone, but I got to, darken it, trying to light up the darkness that was in it and stuff. And I found some weird stuff. I found what looked like a set of eyes. And then the way I did it another way, it looks like a dome shape, almost like a head. But I didn't want to send those to you because I don't really know if it's anything. It may be pareidolia or something, but yeah, it was weird. Like there was something in the shadows back there that you couldn't see.
I'd be surprised. I mean, if there's any kind of activity there, you can probably count on your being watched.
Well, we had a big spotlight, and it's fully charged, working great. We started filming that with the phone, taking pictures, and our spotlight quit. It just went dead. We got away from that area, and the spotlight come right back on. So it's like some kind of weird spiritual thing was happening or something, but it would not let the spotlight work when we were in that area. It quit on us. But
that's weird.
Quarter mile down the lake, spotlight came back on and worked fine.
Well, we've had similar weird electronics crap. My low light thermal camera blew up. The batteries in it that I had just put in it exploded in it as soon as we got to Joe Bald.
Whoa.
Yep.
We're in the camera.
And my phone died from 80%.
Yeah, Robbie's been on like 85 or 90%. We got into Joe Bald and got out, and his phone was on like 8%.
Hey, that photo you've got pulled up right now.
Yeah.
I think that's the. You remember you were looking for that tabletop?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's the you can see the lines of that tabletop.
Yeah.
And then the front edge of it right there with the busted pieces.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was that. And it'd been there a while too. It's got grass growing up through it.
Well, that's the one picture I couldn't send you because it was too dark. But I got to messing around with the color and stuff again, and I was able to pull that out of it. So
I didn't, like an idiot, I didn't take hardly any pictures the whole time we were in Coombs Ferry.
I didn't take that one. We were walking away, and I walked back over there and took a picture, and I couldn't get a very good one. So, but that's the best I could do. I thought that
gives you a good idea how big
But
that thing is.
You can see how, yeah, I'm about to say, you can see how thick that table was. That really,
Corner, and then the back end of it's somewhere over here.
Yeah.
And it's easily 6, 7, maybe even 8 inches thick.
Right.
So that wasn't there just because of a gust of wind.
No, it wasn't.
That took some strength to put that there.
It also took some strength to break it.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, it definitely took a lot of strength to bust that loose, because that was rebar reinforced concrete, so it didn't like it. It's not like it came apart easy.
Right.
Did you take this one?
No, my dad actually sent that to me, and I don't want to give his name or where he works at, but it's pretty close to where he works. He found that in the snow and sent it to me. He knows I'm a believer, so.
Is that in Arkansas?
Yeah, that's down here in Harrison. That's right beside a dumpster.
Yeah, you were telling me that there have been sightings near dumpsters in Harrison.
Yeah, well, I don't know about at the dumpsters, but there's been sightings in Harrison, and it's pretty close to where this is located.
You can see the great example of the human footprint right next to it. So if, say, that's an average footprint, maybe a size 10, you can see how much more massive this track is than that.
Right. The only thing that kind of has me thinking is I talked to a guy at the gym. I always wear a Bigfoot shirt when I go to the gym sometimes. He was telling me about that. He's like, why do you wear that? I'm like, just because. But he's like, yeah, I bought my dad a set of those Bigfoot things you can put on the bottom of your shoes. And this was like this year when he told me that. And it got me thinking, I don't know if somebody put those shoes on and that's what it was, or.
Here's the thing, Wyatt, though. Look at the footprints around it and look at that footprint and tell me what you notice is different.
Well, it's quite a bit bigger.
Well, not the obvious that it's bigger. Just, DA, do you see what I'm talking about? Look at all the human footprints around. What is it?
The snow and it's melted in that one?
Uh-huh. Whatever made that footprint was way heavier than whatever was making those human footprints. Look at it's compacted the snow all the way down to the gravel. The human footprints didn't. So it's not a melt and refreeze. So whatever made that footprint was heavy enough to compact that snow down to where there's no snow, hardly any snow at all left in the footprint.
Yeah, if that was a melt and refreeze, these edges right here would not be that crisp.
Okay. Yeah, it was after it had snowed. It was like the next day, so I thought it had melted. Maybe not.
That's like the warmth of the bottom of the foot melted that snow.
You know,
Richard, we can't hear you, man.
It's like the warmth of the bottom of the foot. A bare foot melted it.
Yeah, like it probably stood there for a minute.
If it was a melt and refreeze, you wouldn't see the gravel in the bottom.
Okay.
Because there would be, because water would be, because that's the whole thing of a refreeze is whatever's in there is refreezing, and that's like when you see the bare footprints that elongate like that and the melt and refreeze, it still looks like a footprint in the snow, and there's still stuff in the bottom of it. It's because what's melted is refrozen. There's nothing in there to refreeze. Now, I'm not saying that somebody didn't dig all the way down and put that in there, but that's a big glaring difference to me is that's not a melt and refreeze, number one, because there's nothing in the bottom of the track. Number two, whatever made it, if that was something standing there, it was heavy enough to move all that snow or compact all that snow down to where there's nothing left in there.
I like how the toes are splayed out too. And most of those Bigfoot track makers, the toes are together like ours are. These are splayed out like it would be something that had never worn a shoe. And we've got 2 toes together right here, and then the other 3 are just splayed out because those are out to grip.
That makes sense. I just anything's Bigfoot because I don't really know, but I just take the evidence how I get it.
Roxanne,
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
DA's point is, if you look in the middle where his cursor is right now, those are 2 toes that are just kind of joined, or not joined together, but they're just close enough together to where there's. I'm sure if that was a lot better resolution on the picture, you probably could see just a little bit of deviation in between the.
You can kind of see it right there.
I can see it now. I've never noticed that. I just thought it was 4 toes.
That's as far in as I can zoom.
If that's 4 toes, then that 3rd toe is really, really big for a toe, because this is as
Right.
big as that one impression is as big as the impression for the big toe. If you look at it,
Oh, you're right.
Those toes are splayed out. Those don't look like the track of a person that's walking in the sand or the snow, because our toes are just naturally together because we wore shoes our whole lives. That is something that does never worn shoes.
Okay. That makes sense. That's my dad's footprint, I think, beside it.
That's your dad's print.
I believe so.
So what's he wear, like 9 or a 10?
9.5 or 10 or something like that.
So his shoe's about the same size as mine. Yeah, if that's a standard size 9 or 10, look how much wider the heel is. I mean, that's almost a perfect comparison side by side. We've got the heel on here that on a normal shoe or a boot is probably around 3 inches, which would put this one probably closer to 7 to 8 inches across the heel. And then toe to toe is probably around 12 inches. And you can see this is almost lined up perfectly. This isn't much longer than that, but it is way wider. So this was probably a juvenile track. I would guess it's probably 14, 15 inches long.
Yeah, 13.5, 14 inches probably, and probably 9 inches wide.
Yeah, it's very wide. I mean, across the ball of the not the ball of the heel, but the ball of the foot up here, across that's probably every bit of 9 inches. But with probably 7.5, 8 inches down here.
And you can look and see that you said it just earlier, D.A. I just didn't get a chance to go into it. You said that something stood there for a while. Look at the dwell time. If you look how the it's kind of wallowed out a little bit around the toe tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny and Kevin and some of y'all will remember in the class, and I taught you about dwell time, how you could tell something that stood in place for a long time. Very few things if they're standing still, stand completely 100% still. If they're just watching something, or if there was a dumpster there and it was getting in the dumpster, we've all heard talk about them doing the tree peeking and the swaying. That's, if you look at that, how that snow's wallowed out around the edges and around the toe prints, that to me shows dwell time, shows it was standing there for a while. And it was doing something.
Look how flat it is compared to the shoe.
That's because of probably the moving around and the dwell time.
Yeah, I think that stood there for a little bit, especially, you can't really tell from here, but it looks like the dumpster is probably just right off the top of the image.
I believe so, D.A.
And if that thing was standing there, it was probably just leaned over digging through the dumpster, and that's probably why that track is there as long as it has. This looks like it might be an exiting track.
That's what I was thinking too.
Like it had turned and was walking away. But there's not enough of a wide angle. Well, right there, I assume that's your dad's toes.
Where at, D.A.?
I'm assuming that's your dad's toes right there at the bottom edge of the picture.
I can't see the bottom edge of the picture. This thing is.
Sorry. There's toes of boots right at the bottom edge, and it looks where they're standing, it's mostly clear. So I would say that one little patch of snow is where it was standing, but this area was mostly clear. So it was probably standing kind of hunched over, and then stepped over here as it was leaving.
Okay, that makes sense.
At least that's what it looks like to me. That is a really good track, though.
Thank you. I know it, but until like last year or the year, I think it was last year when my dad finally told me he's had his own experiences out in the wood as well. He had two trees knocked over. He had wood knocks on either side of him. And him and my grandpa on my mom's side years ago, he said that they seen something. It was quite a distance away, but they seen something black walking into the woods. And it could have been a bear, but I can't remember if he said it looked like it was standing up or not, but he's had his own experiences.
Dude, that area down around you, it seems to be pretty active.
Yeah. I've had, ever since I had my first experience in 2021, just about every area that I went into the woods, I've had stuff happen.
And it seems to me that like after you've had an experience like that, it's not that you're open to more experiences. You just start noticing things. For years, I knew guys that didn't believe a word of this, that didn't think it was possible, and would ignore things in the woods. And then once they had an encounter, they'd be, deer hunters mostly, they'd be like, now that I've noticed this, now that I know this thing's out there, I've noticed things for years that I just kind of blew off.
We were hunting one day. We were walking and smelled something bad, really bad. And Wyatt and I kept looking around and we couldn't find nothing, but it smelled like a horrible wet dog and rotten meat together. Then we heard something. Well, we never did see it, but the smell was god awful. And in that same spot, I heard tree knocks. Seen some deer come running out of the field, went all the way down to the bottom of the field, ran around crazy. And the tree knocks were getting closer and closer. So I figured it was time for me to get out of that area. Something was telling me to leave, so I went ahead and left.
Blame you. Don't blame you a bit. You said this one was from a different time. Let me bring this picture up. You said this was a different time when you guys were out there?
Yeah, that's the time we went out after Coombs Ferry. And the night I texted you about, 1 o'clock in the morning asking you about Dogman. That's what we found when we got back to the boat.
Now I can tell that's a Glock magazine. What kind of Glock was that?
That's a Glock 29.
Glock 29. I don't have a 29 to measure. It looks like the magazine's probably about the same size as a 26. And that would make it just right at 4 inches. I'm using the tape measure checking one right now. Just right at 4 inches.
Yeah, I think it was between I think it was right at 3.5 or something like that. I don't remember. I've got it in my gun cabinet if you need me to go get it. But
no, I was just kind of getting a rough estimate.
Now that's the same spot that the other footprint was taken at, the same boat ramp, just a different night.
So if this is the tip of the end of the track up here, and this is the bottom of the track, that's what, about 3.5, maybe 4 of those?
Yeah, that's what I
would got the toes up here. So yeah, it's still well over a foot. But it's pretty deep in that gravel too.
But something, DA, I would say more of a Dogman print on that than I would a Bigfoot because of how narrow it is.
Exactly. I was thinking it was very narrow.
You didn't have to tell me that, Robbie.
I'm just saying, Wyatt. Sorry.
Robbie, you're my tracking guy. Let me kind of get in on that. Does that look more like the end of a canine track with the claws than it does toes?
Yeah.
Because this toe and this toe were at the same distance, the same height, and then you've got the impressions up here where it stepped off.
Well, the way that gravel kind of lays at the end of it, what looks to me like the way the disbursement comes off, obviously it was walking forward, because of the way it kicked everything up towards the end of the track, and it looks like it's kind of covered up what the front part of the track would be. But right there at the top where the big toe would be, that does look like it's starting to be, or the starting of where a claw would be. And it's kind of like it almost stepped and was going off to, I guess, to the right, the way this print is, because you see how it's kind of swept off to the right towards the podcast symbol up in the top of the screen. That's the way it sweeps towards it, like it was kind of turning to go that direction. Yeah, that direction, because that's the way that it's kind of. If you look at the right where your mouse is right now, you kind of see the scrapes and where the dispersant kicked out. If it did have claws, if it was, then that's what would have happened. Is it picked its foot up off the ground. Anything that was over top or right underneath or those claws grabbed into is going to sweep that way. That's how I explained about the backtracking versus walking forward. Disbursement's going to be towards the front of the track if it's walking forward. If it's backtracking, then disbursement's going to be flipped towards the back of the track. And that looks like the disbursement's flipped towards the front of the track. So I would say that it was angling off to the right, and that's why you get that sweep pattern off that way.
Or it kind of looks like the impressions of the toes. The two outside toes are at about the same position to me.
It could just be favoring that foot too, though.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Well, the funny thing is, Robbie, is before we got back to the boat ramp, I was already texting DA about the Eyeshine that we'd seen. And I was asking him how far apart the eyes of a dogman would be. And we got into a conversation about all that. Then we got back to the boat ramp and found this.
Well,
people say that the dogman Eyeshine they've seen was more of a yellowish color, but every time I've experienced it, it's been green.
That what we saw at the LBL that night was, I mean, it was green.
What we saw at Joe Bald was green.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where we saw that ginormous freaking canine print.
All I know is when we were shining the light and, it kind of casting the shadows and stuff, for just a second, I caught a glimpse of something, and it was basically just the shadow of it. But whatever it was, it had a snout. And when I looked at the eyes, I don't know. I'm like, and I said, that's not a Bigfoot. I'm like, I felt something evil in those eyes when I was looking at it. And that's when I texted DA on the way back to the boat ramp. There were 5 sets. There were 4 or 5 sets of Eyeshine. What had me was it looked like they were almost laying on the ground. But this one, it was more up. It was standing taller.
You've heard me tell what happened to me at the LBL, right? You've heard me tell that story, Wyatt.
Right.
That we were looking down a hill, but we would have sworn whatever was about, 1.5 to 2 feet off the ground. We thought it was just okay, it's got green Eyeshine, but it's got to be something small, And then once we went back the next day, what looked to be that far off the ground was probably about 3.5 to 4 feet off the ground, more than likely, because it was looking uphill at us. So, it's a perspective thing, depending on, and especially at night. When you're looking at things at night, and DA, you can back this up too. When you work night shift and you're riding around in a town at night, and then the first time you work day shift in that town, you see things that you never knew were there because everything looks so different during the day than it does at night. So when you're looking at stuff at night, your point of view, your perception, everything is skewed in a completely different way. So when we went back out there the next day to look at, we were like, wait a minute. Whatever we were looking at is way bigger than we thought it was, which is scary because you're thinking, oh yeah, maybe it's a possum, maybe it's a raccoon, maybe this, maybe that. You get out there and you're like, wait a minute. This wasn't no possum. This wasn't no raccoon, because instead of its head being that far off the ground, its head was like that far off the ground.
That's what I was trying to tell myself it was a coon or something, but I don't think it was.
Just a guy who yaps says, do different types of wolves so far that have been proven to exist, that they have different eyeshine? Most wolves have yellowish or golden eyeshine. But, among canines, green is not uncommon. my dog that I have now, whenever I take him outside at night, I'll shine the flashlight to try to figure out where the little idiot's at in the back part of the yard, and his eyes are just green as emeralds.
Those ones at Coombs Ferry, our pictures of, they were green.
Yeah, every one of them that we've got at Coombs Ferry, and there was a bunch of them. And that picture you gave me, Richard, it didn't do it justice because there was a bunch of eyes in that, but only like one set came out.
Yeah. It was following me while I was trolling that bank, waiting for you guys to come back.
We did see some raccoons over in the water, but that wasn't what we were getting the eyeshine from.
No, we saw 2 or 3 raccoons. The raccoons were down at the water's edge. The eyeshine was up on the bank in the wood, the tree line.
Well, I heard it take off when you guys come down to the boat ramp. You guys started walking to the left, and I heard it run off. It didn't go very far because it came right back when we got on the boat and it followed us. You could see the eyeshine following us, whatever it was.
When you came in and picked up Estrella and Wyatt, and you left me and Robbie and Noah, as you were backing away, the farther you got from shore, we could hear them getting closer. They were not making any secret of it at that point. And by the time you made it around the tip of the peninsula, the three of us were standing with our heels in the water with our pistols out, with our back to the lake, because they were getting close.
That eyeshine that we seen the other time, I don't think it was green, but I think Richard was saying it was like a yellowish green kind of.
I think a lot of it depends on diet.
Yeah.
But I've seen, blue eyeshine and I've seen red eyeshine. And it's kind of up in the air on what it is, but I've seen several charts that say this is what you typically see, but even among like canines, you'll see like 5 different colors they could possibly be. So it varies depending on their diet, but these are those charts have the most usual of eye colors, and wolves are most usually kind of like a sickly yellow or a gold color, and canines will run the gamut.
Richard, you want to tell him what that eyeshine was, that one that was standing up, was doing the whole time?
It kept keeping around the tree. It looked around one side, and then it'd be around the other side. And it was different levels. It'd be real low, and the next thing it'd be around the other side of the tree looking. You couldn't ever hear it moving, but you could see it going back and forth around that tree watching us. We've had just about every single time we've went out, we've had something happen to us, and there's been a twice now that I had to leave. Normally I don't get startled. It's like, oh no, okay, I ain't worried about it. But there's been a couple times where I told Wyatt, okay, we got to go. Let's go. Let's get out of here.
I've had a few of those butt puckering moments myself where like things go absolutely dead quiet, and it's like, maybe this is a good time to be somewhere else.
Well, we got to the lake one time. We got to the lake one time last year, and it may have actually, I think it was earlier this year. But as soon as we got to the lake, even at the boat ramp, it was like dead quiet. You couldn't hardly hear anything. And it was like that when we got to the other spot in the lake where we were going. It was dead quiet there too. It was pretty crazy.
What gets me is we've had them on both sides of the lake moving towards us at the same time on more than one occasion. We'll be looking one way, listening real quiet, and then something will happen behind us, and we'll hear something, and we'll look that way, and then something behind us again would move from the other side. And that's happened more than once.
I think they get really curious about boats. I really do.
Yeah, I got them big lights on my boat, and I told Wyatt, I said, I think they know my boat. They know I'm not going to harm them. They know I'm, because I can turn them lights on and then stuff starts happening. We start hearing stuff, start seeing stuff. Heck, we had a big old rock throwing at us, landed right behind us in the boat. Scared Wyatt half to death.
Yeah, that's when I drew my pistol.
Smashing through the leaves past me. But you actually got hit by one, didn't you, Richard?
Yeah, it's in my shin. That's what I was telling my son. I thought it was his weight, and I turned the light on. There's a rock in the bottom of the boat, and I had a cut on my leg. And we shined the spotlight up there and looked and went all the way around the island, and no boats up there. There was nobody up there. but I couldn't find nothing. I just know my leg was bleeding from that. He's like, well, let's go fish somewhere else.
We're fishing down on Lake of the Ozarks one time and had a rock pitched off a bluff that was about the size of a bowling ball, and it missed us by quite a distance. But we decided to get the hell away from that bluff, because even if it was kids up there doing it, I didn't want to take a boulder to the boat.
Yeah, when Wyatt and I had that rock thrown on us, it was probably 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was probably 10 feet behind the boat, and it made a big splash. So it was a huge rock.
Chances could they by chance be starting to get aggressive? What do you guys think about that?
I think they were. They were getting tired of us being out there. But
I think we've been running into more aggressive ones.
Yeah.
Just in general.
See, before the rock got thrown at us, we were shining before the real action started happening. I was shining the light up into there's a electric light right away going across the lake, and I was shining the light up in there, and it went dead. And about 5 minutes after that, maybe not even that, we heard this whistle, and I kid you not, well, Shaquille O'Neal couldn't whistle a quarter this loud. It started and it changed as it kept going. It was changing octaves as it went up, and that sent chills down my back. And about 5 minutes after that, a pack of coyotes lit up right behind us, and that was I don't know if they were calling the coyotes towards us or what that was, but it was weird.
Whistle real loud and for quite a long time, but this whistle I had no competition in it. It was a lot louder, a lot longer. It was a long ways away.
I'm always impressed by the lung capacity.
I don't know what it was, but it was loud.
It's just like that howl from around here. We talked about that, about how you can hear everything that's right there around that speaker. But this, you can tell whatever this is so far away, but the lung capacity to still make it sound so clear. And when you start listening to like the Sierra sounds, the Ohio growl, all these, really popular vocalizations, that's kind of the same thing or theme throughout is whatever was making these sounds was way far away from the recorder, but it's so big and it's got so much lung capacity that it sounds like it's standing right on top of them. And it's just, that's kind of scary to think about.
Yeah. What did you guys think of that owl?
What is it?
That howl that was recorded close to Robbie. What did you guys think of that one?
Well, that was pretty creepy. I've heard it several times, and it's, yeah.
Have you heard it?
Have you heard it, Richard?
No, sir. No.
I think we can fix that.
I think you're about to.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Sounds canine to me.
Yeah, I was fishing a couple of years ago in September, early in the morning, and something fired off on the hill up there in Brush Creek where we go all the time, hear all that. And it was so loud that I could feel it across the lake in my chest. And there was a fishing guide out there that had clients out there, and he hollered at me, "What the hell was that?" I said, "I don't know, man." He said, "I'm out of here." And he left. I got a little bit of recording. I think I sent it to you, D. Yeah, I think I sent it to you. But it's just, I wish I would have thought about getting it sooner, because it did it for a couple minutes. But you always hear people saying that they freeze up and they don't think about doing anything. That's what I did. I froze up, and it just sent a shock through me. Well, I trolled way back up into the end of that creek, and I never did hear it or see it again. But it was so
exactly
loud.
to me when I had my Dogman sighting. I didn't even once think of taking pictures.
Yeah, that's what I did. I was like, why am I recording this? And then when I finally did, you could hear and then right at the very end, you could hear a little whistle. And then that was it.
Well, and that one, I just happened to be somebody's ring camera happened to go off at 2:00 in the morning. And when he was checking it the next day, because I guess he got a notification, he was going through it and just happens to hear that. I mean, that's just something caused it to go off at the right time and that may have been what caused it to go off. I don't know, just because it was so loud.
You think it could have been the frequency of that growl that caused it to go off somehow?
It could have been. Because, that usually that's the first thing everybody says about that is how powerful that sounds. Because you can tell that's a good ways away from that microphone, but it could have had the frequency or the reverb or whatever kind of musical term or octave or whatever you want to throw at it.
Because that was actually captured on a porch camera.
Yeah, like a Ring doorbell camera.
You know how loud that would have been up close? That would have busted your insides.
I'm convinced that right there in Brush Creek, there's a family living in a cave back there somewhere. And Wyatt and I were out one night, and I did a real soft whoop, and something darted up the hill fast as it can go. And then on the other side, we heard a howl. It sounded like a growl. And then we started hearing sound like owl calling, but it wasn't. You could tell it wasn't an owl, but it was imitating an owl.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I scared a baby Bigfoot up the hill, and they didn't like that.
Well, I've noticed that they're very good at mimicking sounds. I mean, whether it be an owl or any other animal out there, they're very good at mimicking sounds they're familiar with.
Until they don't want to anymore.
Yeah, until they get tired of it.
They've got tired of us a couple of times, I believe.
Tell them about when we were trying to turn on the light and I was making a noise in the brush.
And where the log was at?
We had to turn around.
Up in Brush Creek or Bear Creek.
Anyway, the lake was real up, and we were just trying to decide where we wanted to go because there was a bunch of debris in the lake. And we decided, well, we'll just go over to Blair Branch, which it's another one of the places that we frequent, but not as much as the other. We got to trolling back in there, and we got so far back in there, and we start hearing something just, I don't know, tear up the brush. I mean, like loud. And you, with as much noise as whatever it was making, you'd think you'd be able to shine the light over there and just see whatever it was. I was shining the light. Well, actually, I was trying to get the light on. Richard's like, hurry up, get that damn light on. I'm trying to get the light on. I finally get it on, and it's still making the noise. And there's nothing there. You'd think something making that much noise, you'd be able to see it. So it finally stopped making the noise, and I sat back in the boat, and it got my adrenaline pumping, so I had to sit down. The funny thing was, up until that point, when we got to that point, my hands were cold, and it was like, I mean, it was 60-something degrees outside, so it wasn't cold enough for you to start getting cold. But my hands were getting cold. And then after that happened, I sat down in the boat, and I hear something behind on the opposite side. It starts walking up towards the back of the boat. And that's when we decided to leave.
That was one of the few times that I've got very nervous and had to leave. I don't startle very easily in the woods. I mean, I've heard a lot of things and not get startled, but that's one of the times that I told him, all right, let's get out of here. We can't run the motor because there's so much stumps out there that I had to just troll. And whatever it was, you can hear it getting closer to us as we're trolling out. It's coming towards us. So I don't know if we would have seen something or had something happen if we stayed in that area.
But he didn't get a good feeling.
We've been there. We've all been there. Get into an area and you just, something at the base of your skull is buzzing and telling you probably a good time to get the hell out of there.
Oh, would you look at the time?
That was the same place where I had my very first experience out there, was in Blair Branch.
That was when you got hit in the ankle?
Yeah, in the shin. That was there's an island right at the beginning of it, and that's where I got hit. But in the very back is where me and my son were at. We heard that crashing and all the coyotes took off and branches were breaking and then that night our spotlight quit. It just quit out of the blue. And he's like, let's go back there and see what it is. I was like, no, we don't have any light. Let's just get at her. We can't run the motor. Let's just troll out of here. But you can hear it walking, and then we heard a howl after we got so far out.
Well, it was another time. Well, no, this was the first time we went back into Blair Branch, or maybe the second. Remember when we went back in there and we got back in there so far, and then we heard what it sounded like. I don't want to say samurai chatter, but something was making a noise back in there, and it started getting closer. So we were trolling out there.
Noah was hearing something very much like samurai chatter when we were in Coombs Ferry. He was listening to it on the parabolic.
Whatever it was, the boat wasn't in very deep water, so we decided to turn around.
Well, I get a chance to go out with you guys on the boat. We'll take the parabolic and everything, see if we can get some recordings.
We'd love to have you both
I'm
again.
down.
Doc everybody.
I'm down.
One of us is going to buy a pontoon before too long.
Yeah, pontoon would be a better thing, so we could invade like the beaches in Normandy.
Heck yeah!
And there's at least one campground, a shut down campground on Table Rock we ain't even been into yet. Big Bay. That's down by Shell Knob.
That's on the backside of Kimberling City, isn't it?
No, Big Bay's down by Shell Knob, which is almost to Cassville.
It's way up in there.
Yeah, it's pretty far down the lake. But Noah and I drove down there one night, and they've got a big steel gate across it. There's like a public fishing area, but the entire campground is gated off. I could probably get around that gate with a bicycle, but you ain't getting anything big in there. And from what I could tell from the aerial view, from where they've got that gate, it's a bit of a chuck back to the campground, and it's all through heavy woods. It's just like Joe Bald and Coombs Ferry. It's out on the end of a peninsula.
My son and his friend, they were fishing just over the ridge. It's called Arkansas Missouri Cove. It's just over the ridge from Brush Creek, and they thought they saw a bunch of deer. So they got closer, and then something moved and stood up. And he's like, "Oh man, that's a big old bear." Well, then it stood all the way up on 2 feet and walked up the hill, across the power line, into the woods. And I was like, "Do you think it was a bear?" Well, I don't know what it was, Dad. He won't admit it, but he knows. He said it got up on 2 feet and walked. We could see it walking across the power line in the moonlight. What do you think it was? I don't know, Dad. I don't know. But that's just we hear all our stuff.
Yeah, there's some folks, even when they see something like that, they don't want to admit it's real because it'll change their entire worldview once you have to admit those things are real.
Yep.
My dad came eye to eye with one in Lake Tahoe. He eye to eye, like 40 yards. My uncle had a cabin out in Lake Tahoe, and my dad was out walking in the meadow, and he said he just had an eerie feeling. His hair stood up. He turned around, and there was a Sasquatch standing in the meadow at the edge of the trees. He said it just stood there and watched him, and a little one walked across the meadow. He said once that little one got in the wood line, it walked and never took his eye off him until it got in the woods. And he said he was froze stiff. He couldn't move. He said once that thing got in the woods, he was gone. And he wouldn't go back out there. My uncle tried to get him to go back out, and they carry guns, and he finally went out. And everybody was loaded to the T and found footprints all the way down to where it crossed the creek and then lost the footprints.
And at the one they call it Tahoe Jo out there, the one that's seen at Lake Tahoe all the time.
Yeah.
They even made a cheesy or two cheesy B movies about it, but they actually do call it Tahoe Jo.
I think Richard's watched that one. I think he told me about it.
Yeah.
It's actually not that bad if you just watch it for what it is. But they use a lot of the terrain and a lot of the legend and the lore that people have talked about from that. So
I could be wrong here, but I thought the Paul Freeman film was filmed near Tahoe.
Maybe.
Let me look that up.
It was in California, so could have been. Maybe that was Tahoe Jo that he filmed.
Yeah, we've barely scratched the surface of. I've got a whole page written down here of notes over here that we've
Go at it.
had stuff.
Jump on in. This is according to the Googles, the Paul Freeman footage was taken in the Blue Mountains of northeastern Oregon.
Okay, that wasn't Lake Tahoe then.
I was incorrect.
That Freeman footage is creepy footage when you sit down and think about it.
Especially when you see it stop in front of that tree and just disappear.
Yeah.
That's the mind-blowing part. And to me, that makes more sense that it's that to me, that kind of proves that it's a natural camouflage ability and not cloaking or getting beamed up to the Starship Enterprise. They just, those clear hair shafts in the hair, it picked up the color of the light around it. When it stopped moving, it just disappeared.
Yep.
Guys in ghillie suits do that shit all the time.
I think
something like that happened. One of the few times, the first times,
That was the first time we went out.
we were up there in Brush Creek and see something behind a log. Well, clear as day, we could see something moving and it kind of ducked down a little bit. We could see it and then it just disappeared, just gone, vanished. Couldn't see it in the light, couldn't hear nothing. And I don't know if it turned sideways to where we couldn't see it, or it couldn't have dipped down behind the log because the log wasn't that big for it to, unless it lay completely flat. But whatever it was was there and then it was gone.
Well, look how hard it is to spot a deer when it ain't moving. When they're in the brush and standing completely still, they're damned hard to see. Now imagine something that's adapted and has clear hair shafts that picks up the light around it like a ghillie suit. Yeah, if it stops moving, it's going to be damned hard to see. Very hard.
Yep.
I think maybe whenever we've heard all this noise and we can't ever see it, but when you shine the light towards it, I don't know, maybe if it soaks up the blackness around it, the way the hair is. But all I know is it's very frustrating when you're hearing all these noises and you go to look and there should be something right there and you can't see it.
It's also explain why they're so hard to get on camera. Because that light filtering through those clear hair shafts is going to make the image grainy at best, unless it's standing still. Arkansas Hog Hunter Dan says, if I kind of upset something on my farm, I killed a deer and put the head and legs I'd left over from my kill up in a tree 12 feet off the ground. Next day, the ground was all mashed down. The deer was gone.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So were you guys watching the show where me and Noah were showing the pictures that we took down in Joe Bald?
I try to watch every show today if I can.
See the pictures, the ones we took down in Joe Bald of that deer?
I did. Did you watch that episode?
That's at night we work. I can't watch very good at work.
Let me show you some of the pictures and we'll kind of get your opinions on it there.
I'm going to step away for just a minute and go fill up my glass. I'll be right back.
I can. Let me see which file I've got them in. Yeah, I won't show all of them. I'll show you the most interesting ones. There's the head with the antlers on it. The hide has been torn off. And over here on the edge, you can see part of the vertebrae.
Huh.
And we found all of the legs had been twisted off. You can see the sinew and stuff and where this has been ripped. On the other ones, you can see the broken bone a little better. These weren't just cut off of the deer like a hunter would do. These were, there's the jagged bone sticking out in the twisted sinew. This part of the leg was just ripped off.
Yeah, it wasn't a hunter because the hunter would have took the horns.
Yeah. Even with those little horns, I mean, you can still make knife handles out of them or use them to bring in other bucks. There's not much to those horns. They're not very big, but I still wouldn't have left them behind.
No, they wouldn't have left those.
And the thing, the eyes and the tongue were gone.
Sure. Well, that's like that one of them Russian students where their eyes and tongues were ripped out back in '59.
Yeah. And you can kind of see it there, and I'll zoom in a little bit, but it's not like it was torn out, because the eye, same on both sides. It's not like the flesh around it was mangled at all. The eyeballs are just gone. The entire ocular cavity is empty on both sides. And you can't really tell by looking at the nose, but when I kind of took my pocket knife and opened the mouth up, tongue was gone, and a lot of the soft tissue looked like it had been torn.
Almost like something sucked the eyes out of the skull.
Just about. But, the eyeballs was just gone. They didn't look like they'd been cut out or forced out. They were just like they'd just been popped out.
Oh.
And that night, me and Robbie and Noah found those deer carcasses down at Blunk Road. The first thing we found was a deer head in the middle of the road, and we're in the middle of nowhere. This deer head just laying in the middle of the road, and we parked and walked back up to check it out, and it had been pulled off. It had not been cut. It was all jagged and ragged. It had been torn off right behind the head. Its horns were missing though, but the hide had been torn. It hadn't been cut off. And that was all we found there. I mean, it's the soft bits of its nose, its eyes, and its tongue were missing. And then farther down by the river, we found at least 2 other carcasses that had been completely abraded of flesh. I mean, if you're butchering a deer you shot and you wanting the ribs, you'll leave the bone on it. You'll cut those ribs off and cook the whole rib cage. No, all the flesh had been stripped. And you could still see where there was like little bits of flesh sticking to the bone. All of the flesh had been abraded from all of the carcasses. And we found the hides tossed off to the side, and they weren't cut. They were just like they'd been grabbed and peeled off. Like you skin a rabbit. You just make that incision, grab it, and yank it off. It looked like that somebody had done that with a deer.
That's strange.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So now, all told, I think there's technically, if you count the 2 places there at Blunk Road, that's 4 times when we found dismembered deer in weird conditions. Oh, one of the deer heads that was down by the river, the entire top of its skull was gone. Its brain was missing. And I know about brain tanning. I know Native Americans used to use brains for tanning, but the hide was laying just a couple of feet away.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the point of taking the brain?
Unless somebody wants to scramble brains.
Chronic wasting disease.
Yeah. If you're going to test it for that disease, you just take a little piece of it. You wouldn't take the whole brain.
The entire skull cavity was empty, and it wasn't like it had been cut off. You could see the jagged bone where it had been busted open. Like something took a big rock and smashed the top of the skull off.
I mean, there was plenty that was weird about that night, but to me, just the fact that head was, because it was jagged, there was no cut marks, no nothing, and it was sitting in the middle of the road.
I remember when you guys
In the
did
middle of that. That was a narrow country road too, so it's not like we could go around it. We had to drive over it to get past it, and it was just right there in the middle of the road, pretty as you please.
I remember when you guys did that show after that had happened. I'm like, that looks like what was left on top of Clark's car whenever in Lakeview, man.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're right. We left Joe Ball, and he said, "You want to go down to Blunt Road?" Heck yeah, let's go. Right around the time, he's like, "All right, here we go on Blunt Road." DA's like, "What is that in the middle of the road?" And I'm like, "Where?" And he says, "Right there in the middle of the road." And I looked, and I'm like, "It's a deer."
He was up so he could see it. He said, "That's a deer head."
So
yeah, you don't have to tell me yes or no, but are you going to? Is Coombs Ferry going to be a location in one of your books before lunch?
Yeah, absolutely. Already planning on it.
I can think of some pretty cool ideas.
night vision out. We've got stuff on the night vision and Eyeshine on the night vision and shadows on the night vision. IR that I've got, it's not top of the line, but it was good enough to catch stuff. Wyatt seen it peeping around the tree with it, with that night the IR. So I'm 100% convinced that there's a family living out there in a cave somewhere up in there.
I think they move around on the lake. I think they follow the deer and they move around on that lake. And it does not shock me at all that they're using caves. We've been saying that for a couple of years now, that they're using caves.
I'd like to get out there and walk around during the daytime and see if I can find a cave in that area.
If you can send me the exact position, I can scan in pretty close with I've got a hunting app on my phone that lets me scan in, and it's got some really good satellite images of areas. Maybe I could find something. Well, hell, I'll tell you the name of the app if you want to get it. It's a free app, and you can there's a paid version too. We can get more information, but I've only got the free version. It's called OnX Hunt.
Yeah, that's what I've got. I've got the OnX Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the paid year subscription for that. It's pretty good.
I'm getting a subscription on it.
I got Wyatt on it the other day, so.
I was looking at it for just for Joe Bald, and it's showing the presence of roads I don't know about. They're down on the lower end of Joe Bald, and I'm not aware of these roads. I've never seen them.
Yeah, that's just that makes a lot of sense because remember that abandoned. We didn't think they were using it much anymore. That campground for the Boy Scouts DA.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we went down there one night, and before we went down there, I was just looking at Google Earth, but you can see all sorts of trails in there, and it's pretty weird. You can see all sorts of stuff. We didn't find anything there, but there was actually a troop of Boy Scouts, I guess. They were actually using it at the time. So we weren't able to walk around it very well, but at least not with pistols.
Yeah. Well, there's such a thing as concealed carry.
Unfortunately, I don't have that yet.
Missouri's a constitutional carry state. You don't need it.
Okay. Well, I was carrying anyway, so.
As long as you're over 21 and not felon, you can carry concealed state of Missouri, and you don't have to have a permit to do it. I believe Arkansas is the same way.
Arkansas is open carry.
Missouri was an open carry state, and then they, I think it was like 10 or 12 years ago, they passed constitutional carry, which allows us to carry concealed without. But I would still recommend folks get their CCW. But in Missouri, if you're in Missouri, you can carry a concealed handgun without a permit.
Mine's got a whole bunch of information here you can share with you guys of stuff that may have happened.
Let's hear it, man.
I'm going to go back to the first time I had any sort of experience. This would have been, I think, in November 2021 in deer season. I was fixing to walk down into where I go hunting. It's below a fire tower. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but pretty self-explanatory. It's big tower up out in the woods where they used to use them to watch for forest fires, but they don't do that anymore. I was fixing to walk off down into my hunting area, and what was weird about my first experience is this group of hunters came up. They started asking, "Have you seen so and so?" It's like, he was in our camp this morning, and we haven't seen him. I'm like, no, I hadn't seen him or anything like that. And so they never asked me to help look for him or anything. They just told me that, like, we can't find him. So I don't think anything ever come of that because I never heard of any missing persons reports or anything. But it was just weird because that happened right before my first experience. I was walking down in the woods and I start hearing knocks. And it was consistent knocks. It was one, and it maybe a few seconds later, another knock. And the first thing that I said, I didn't say it loud, but I'm like, no fucking way. Because I'd never had anything happen up until then. I'm thinking, well, okay. So I start, and I even called out. I'm like, is there anybody out there? Because, you know, if it happened to be that one guy, maybe I just found him, but never got a response. And it kept knocking. It probably happened for a solid 5-10 minutes. And my buddy was asking me, you think it was a woodpecker? I'm like, no, I've heard a woodpecker before. And this wasn't a woodpecker. So anyway, that was the first experience. Then in, I think it was March or April of 2022, it was around mushroom hunting season. You know, the morel mushrooms that everybody likes to eat. We were over at our property over in Newton County, and I was with my wife, and my little girl was there. She was over with, the wife was with me, and the little girl was with one of the grandparents or something like that. But I don't know if you guys have heard of the baby crying in the woods.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I start hearing the baby crying in the woods. I'm thinking, I'm telling my wife about it. I'm like, yeah, this is something that people have described with Bigfoot encounters as baby crying in the woods. I'm not 100% saying that's what it was, because there are surrounding properties that border ours. I guess there could have been a child outside crying. I'm not, but I just thought it was awful weird. That's the only time I've ever heard it. My wife and my little girl were in the same area. Of course, there was 2 men there too, but I was kind of wondering if something was trying to lure them out into the woods. Like I said, I'm not that.
They get more curious or more active when there are women or children around.
Yeah. So that was one time, and then the next encounter I had, I'm going to get to where me and Richard are together here in just a minute, I promise.
No worries, man.
September of 2023, we have what we call squirrel camp. We all get together. This is in the same vicinity where I heard the knocks, and we all get together. We have squirrel camp once a year, and we're all sitting there BSing and stuff, and it's time to go to bed. And we all get to sleep and stuff. And I wake up in the middle of the night. One of my buddy's dads had brought his squirrel dog out there, and they'd left it outside, and I could hear it barking. And we were sleeping in a little camper, and the barking, it was going steadily around the camper. You could hear it move around the camper, and finally it stopped. And I'm laying there. I'm laying in the bed that faces the door. I'm looking right at the door. And after the dog stopped barking there, a few minutes later, I hear something jiggling the door handle. I'm thinking, that time I'm getting pretty scared because I didn't hear anything walk up.
The locks on them campers ain't good at that.
There was not a lock on the camper, so I'm glad whatever it was didn't decide to open the door. I mean, I had my 10 millimeter. It was just across on a little table sitting by the door, but that kind of got me. I didn't tell nobody at squirrel camp about that because I'm basically the only believer out there. But yeah, something tried the doorknob of the camper, and yeah, that kind of freaked me out.
And that'd been a coming to Jesus moment if it was me. I would either be throwing out some verbal commands, or I would be cocking a handgun at the very least.
I didn't really want to piss whatever it was off, but yeah, I just laid there, and it tried it for just a second, and then it stopped. But something was definitely trying to open that door handle. Maybe not trying to open it, but it was letting everybody know that there was something in there. Bad part about it was I was the only one that heard it because I was the only one awake at that time.
Well, it takes hands to move a doorknob.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't believe that dog got up there and was trying to get in.
Arkansas squirrel dogs are pretty big.
No, it wasn't a very big dog at all.
My uncle used to hunt with one of those. He had a little Arkansas squirrel dog.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty little dog. Then I guess the next time would have been the first time me and Richard went out together. like I said, when we heard the wood knock. And there was he was talking about something we seen and it just disappeared. My perspective is I seen a white patch behind this log, and we were shining the light on it, and it just vanishes. It just completely goes away. And Richard said he heard something walking on the bank of the lake there, and it wasn't 5 minutes later or less than that, there was a wood knock. I mean, wood knock or mouth click, whatever you want to call it. And it was plain as day.
So was the dog still there?
Do what?
When they had that still in your camper, was the dog still there, or was the dog missing?
No, the dog was still there the next day, but it had stopped. It had stopped barking.
Anyway, sorry about interrupting you there. There's a couple of people who want to know if the dog was alive.
Yeah, the dog's still alive as far as I know. A lot of these things, some of them we've already talked about. We smelled the wet dog. Yeah, I think
So me and my son, we were hunting at over by Jimmy's Creek, and we heard something across the road. There's an old dirt road that runs down there. And my son looked at me and says, "What in the world was that, Dad?" I said, "I don't know. It's growling, whatever it is." He said, "It sounds like a Tasmanian devil." And it was a god awful sound. And it was right before daylight. So it was probably about 5:30 in the morning, 5:45, and you can just hear it. And he said, "That's a Tasmanian devil. It has to be. There ain't no Tasmanian devils around here." And then we heard something walking away. So I don't know if something was just chattering at us and letting us know that it was there in that area. But I definitely I had a bow at the time, so I definitely had it ready to go just in case. I don't know what a bow would have done, but it made me feel a little bit better.
It's better than nothing.
it's sharp anyway. We went to me and his son and him, we'd all went out to put up some tree stands one day. This is in the same general vicinity within, that's where he heard what he was just describing. Well, we were there hanging tree stands, and I was listening for stuff because I like to listen for Bigfoot. If I can hear anything, I'm always listening. Anyway, we go to this other place. We called it the Three Fields. And we put a tree stand up at the other place, and we were coming to put one up over here. And the fields were like massively overgrown. They hadn't cut them this year. This is on Corps of Engineer land. And we get back there to the backfield, which would have been the third field. And we were looking and looking, and we walked to the very back where the line of trees was.
Take in mind, this is where I heard all them tree knocks that one day too. And this is where we smelt that dog rotten meat smell.
So we decided there wasn't a place to put that stand at that right there in that general vicinity. So we were fixing to start walking back out and see if we'd find somewhere else. And I hear the brush start popping over to my right. And when I heard it, I looked that direction, and I don't know what it was, and I barely got a glimpse of it. I could kind of see through a little opening in the trees there, but something was walking straight away from it, walking like horizontal, where I could see it slowly walk off. Then it just disappeared. And after that, I'm trying to get Richard's attention. I'm like, oh, there was something over here, but something was popping brush and making a big ruckus. And then when we finally got out, we were getting back to the truck. We heard sounded like something was charging us. And I was about ready to drop all the stuff I had in my hand and draw the pistol. But thankfully, it was just Richard's son that threw a rock into the woods, and it had came crashing. And yeah, I got a little worried when that happened.
You know, you hear something coming at you in the woods, it's probably not coming with good intent. So yeah, I would have done the same thing. I'd have been clearing leather.
I was about to.
Time to unask the AO.
Oh, kidding.
I've got over on my property. I was telling you where I heard the baby cry. It was, I believe it was the next year, or maybe the same year. I was sitting down in this. It's kind of like it goes down into a valley where there's a bunch of trees, then it comes out into the field up there. And I was sitting down there by a tree, and I was, waiting for a deer to come by, and I hear something growl. I'm like, well, that's kind of scary. So I sat there for a minute, and I get up. I'm like, I'm leaving. So I walk back around the property, and I come over to the other side, and I go walking down in the woods there, and something growls at me again. So something growled at me in two different spots. Like, I don't know if it was following me or there was more than one, but yeah, I walked out of the woods walked out backwards with my gun facing the general vicinity. Something had dropped out of a tree, and it could have been a squirrel or a raccoon or whatever, and I barely caught it out of the corner of my eye. So that's what makes me think it was a squirrel. But this happened like right after the growl, not too long after that.
You hear a growl or something crying in the woods. That is a sobering moment, and it is tough to ascribe that to anything else. I mean, I know a lot of people are skeptics and don't want to face the reality that these things are out there. But sometimes people just want to stick their head in the sand and refuse to see these things for what they are.
I agree.
Well,
go ahead, Robbie. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that just lends to what we've always said. That it's easier to believe. It's easier for these things to exist than it is to think about how much would go into if they were hoaxed. It's just for the hoaxing to be legit, it would have to be. There's no way to not say or to say these things don't exist, and it be an easier statement to believe that they don't exist. It just, if that makes any sense, I don't understand why people have not made this a true scientific effort where it's actual real scientists that are actually saying, you know what, there's enough evidence to warrant really people looking into this. So it's not on the shoulders of, amateur researchers like us, people that have got the money and the time and the effort to go out there and actually put in I think that it wouldn't be long before we had another Billy Ape or mountain gorilla or giant panda, where, these are just rumors. Nope, there they are. It wouldn't be long if the effort was put into it. That's what I'm saying.
There's way too much stuff that we've had happen to us in just the short time that we've been going out together. I mean, there ain't going to be somebody walking in the woods at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, whistling, throwing rocks at you, breaking branches like that, and leaving footprints out in the middle of nowhere. It's not going to happen.
If it was a person messing with your camp, whistling and throwing rocks at you, most people realize that is a great way to get shot.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're coming if I'm there with my family and I'm camping and somebody's whistling and walking around my tent, he's probably going to get some high velocity pew-pews coming his direction.
You can ask Richard. I wouldn't even go out on the boat with him until I bought me a pistol.
Time to invest in a cordless hole puncher.
Yeah,
that's right.
I did do a little research and Googling like what cougars sound like when I had that growl happen. And there's a possibility it could have been a big cat because they may follow you too. And later on, I'd heard reports that they'd seen mountain lions out there. So that could have been what it was. But with all the other stuff, who knows?
Follow a person from time to time, but that's generally not their go-to. Right? It's kind of rare that they do it. And you would have heard it growl. You would have heard a cougar call at some point in that. And when you've got something that's pacing you in the woods, especially, and you can tell the difference between the gait of something walking on 4 legs versus walking on 2 legs. I've heard things pacing me in the woods, and I'm like, that's 2 legs. And I've been nervous enough about, like, hey, if there's somebody out there, I am armed. So if you're planning on coming in and doing something stupid, you're going to get shot. And keep right on pacing.
The bad part about that was I didn't hear anything. It just surprised me both times. I'm like, something doesn't want me here.
I kind of get the feeling that the only time we hear them is when they want to be heard. When they're kind of giving you that warning that, hey, I'm here, and you probably ought to get out of here. I think they're like the old joke about calling them forest ninjas. They're just about like that.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of times where I felt calm about them. We'll hear something or we'll see something. Don't feel anxious or nothing. But there's a few times that we've had something happen that's, a lot of growling and trees breaking and get nervous, and it's time to leave. But most of the time I'm comfortable with it. It don't bother me. I'll shine the light and I want to go closer to the land, but somebody don't want to get out of the boat with me. Go investigate.
Jeff Yarrington said, DA, we had a guy break into a house by us, and all they did was take a picture of him. If somebody kicks in my door, the only pictures that are going to get taken is when the crime scene people show up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've had so many different sounds following me that I think that they know my boat when I turn them lights on, that I'm not going to hurt them. I'm not out there to do nothing but fish. And then a lot of times I turn the lights off. We'll just sit there in the quiet, and we can hear stuff walking here. And then all of a sudden we'll start hearing branches, and we'll turn the lights on and we'll see Eyeshine or.
Yeah. Me and a buddy of mine, this was been 25, 30 years ago. We floated down the Gasconade River, and we found a low spot where there was a gravel bar in the middle of, and we were in the middle of nowhere. There are no roads near us. We're not even seeing houses. It's just woods on either side of the river. We found a low spot, and we were going around this gravel bar, and in the middle of the gravel bar was a series of stacked rocks. There was like 3 piles of them, and one of them was about 4 feet tall.
That's pretty crazy.
We found something like that when we went up and we found those 2 rocks stacked.
Oh yeah, we found some stacked rocks. There weren't very many of them, but there was
way in the back of Brush Creek as far as we can go on the boat.
You heard some. He heard something walking in the daytime too, across the bank on the other side one time. That was that same day.
And I don't know if he's in the chat tonight, but his name is Chris. We went to high school together, hung out together. On the land his family used to own up in Laclede County, there was an area that we referred to as the Devil's Altar, and it was in a stand of woods at the back of their field. And we went back there and we're looking at it. He showed it to me, and it was 2 rocks about the size of, I don't know, two fairly good sized rocks, like about the size of a foot locker each, with a larger piece of rock sitting on top of them like a tabletop. And there was no way we were moving that rock with anything. Might not even moved it with a tractor. It was thick. And we'd always wondered how that got there, but I kind of wonder if it wasn't something, something's place, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Well, we were walking one day coming out of the woods, and I can't remember exactly where we were at, but we found some branches that were nowhere, no trees. No kind of tree was nowhere in that area. They were arrow shape on the ground. The branches were shaped as an arrow, but the branches, I don't know where they came from, because there was no tree that was like that anywhere around there. And that was kind of weird. We couldn't figure it out. Both of us looked at it and was like, well, yeah, that's like an arrow pointing this way.
It's amazing some of the stuff that they do. Like that hunting blind that Robbie found it, but that we found it in Joe Bald. It like, as Robbie likes to describe it, it was all woven together, and it looked like a really big bird's nest on its side, where it could just crouch back inside it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we found something like that.
There.
We found something like that in Jimmy Creek. We were walking, we crossed the creek and we were walking on the other side. And Wyatt's like, wait, this looks like a structure or something. And we walked around it and there was a hole on the other side and it opened up in the middle of it. There was just trees woven through each other, stuck into the ground. They weren't just laid there. They were literally stuck and then woven through each other. And you could see where there was an opening where something could go in and out real easy. And that's where Wyatt saw that one walking at.
I mean, this was literally like the old bird's nest. You see the sparrows and finches that they weave out of pine needles and things like that. Imagine that turned on its side, so you could just kind of get back into the bowl of the nest. Way it was. I mean, I crawled back in there about 1.5 feet. Told DA to go up the trail and walk down to where he could see me. He walks about 13, 14 feet away, turns around, knew where I was at, knew exactly what I was wearing, and knew what to look for. Turned around, and I was completely gone. He couldn't even see me.
Wow.
He was like literally 5 feet away from me before he could finally see me.
Robbie, wasn't that the same night that did you guys see Eyeshine in that area too, or hear something moving in that direction?
The night before, yeah.
Yeah.
We think it probably went down into that little hunting blind, was trying to lure, as Casey's likes to bring up, lucky I had the Wrangler that night.
Old Robbie Wrangler.
Yep.
How's old Noah doing?
Official job title.
How's Noah doing?
He's doing good. He's monitoring the chat tonight. He didn't pop in though.
Hey, DA, do you guys need to do a sponsor thing at all tonight?
I was going to wait and do one right at the end.
Okay, I was just wondering.
I was going to do one at the beginning and forgot all about it. So we're going to kind of get to where we only do one a night.
We've kind of been talking nonstop, so I just wanted to ask if you needed to do one.
Perfectly happy with that. Yeah, we'll do one right at the end.
Okay.
Jay Freiberg says, does Bigfoot have a religion? Could these things be all... Could these things you all describe as be a chapel? I don't know. We don't know enough about them to know. I mean, maybe. I can't say yes. I can't say no. We just don't know enough about them.
I just feel that one night Wyatt and I are going to be out there, and we're gonna see one. We're gonna get evidence of one. We've had way too much stuff happen not to come across one sometime.
And I think a lot more people have seen them than we know, because I think a lot of people just refuse to come forward. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to admit they've seen anything. I think there's far more people that have had an encounter than we probably will ever know.
Yeah, they're afraid of the ridicule they'll get.
Robbie and I can both tell you, working in law enforcement, if you talked about it much, you got a lot of ribbing for it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing though, is we've kind of hit on that before. It gets to the point where you just like I am right now. I mean, DA's retired and out of it. I'm still in it, but I'm just at the point I just don't care. I mean, I saw what I saw. I know what I know, and I really don't care what. Because I've had arguments with people that I work with, police, not the one I work at now, but another police department. Like, yeah, I believe in aliens and ghosts, but Bigfoot, that's ridiculous. And that just blows me away, the level of stupidity it takes to make a statement like that. That you can say you're so open and believe that there's ghosts and little green men from Mars, but an undiscovered species of North American great ape is so far outside the norm that can't happen.
Yeah, I've told people, even Wyatt's told people at work, come with us. Get out of the boat and walk up that hill. And I ain't had a taker yet.
Yep, no takers.
They'll laugh at us, but yet they won't go with us.
I've had people tell me that I've been all over the Mark Twain National Forest. I've never seen anything. I'm like, really? You've walked all 3.5 million acres of the Mark Twain, and that's just the Mark Twain.
Yeah, and look, I've been in the woods all my life. Where have you been? Well, I got a place I hunt. So you hunt one spot the entire time. Yeah. One spot that you hunt, and
Have you ever seen a
anywhere.
grizzly in that spot? Well, we know grizzlies exist.
That is the perfect example of what you say all the time, DA, of somebody walking down to the edge of the ocean with a teaspoon and picking it up and saying, ain't no sharks in there. So there's no sharks in the ocean. That's that narrow-minded train of thought and way of thinking that people have. You can't convince them. Bigfoot could walk out of the woods, walk into their house, smack them in the face, turn around, walk out, and they would be like, "Man, did you see that bear?"
Yeah, we've got a guy at work that he likes to make fun of people about if they believe in that kind of thing, and they give this one guy at work a hard time because if what this guy's saying is true, he's had a lot of encounters. I've talked to him a little bit, but this guy he eggs him, and whenever that guy walks into the room, Richard just starts talking about Bigfoot even louder.
Heck yeah.
He don't say nothing to me.
Well, yeah, we had, who was it that, Robbie, who was it that was telling the story about the lady that had two of her hogs stolen, said it was a black bear and it walked off with a hog in each hand?
Oh, God, it was just what, last week or week before?
Yeah, last week or week before, someone was telling us there was a lady had said it was a black bear. It was definitely a black bear, but it picked up two of her hogs and walked off carrying one in each hand.
I remember that, but I can't remember who was telling us that.
I can't remember who it was that said it either. But
The only thing that has me worried, Robbie, is you thought that one track was a Dogman track after I thought we seen a Dogman.
Yeah, you know.
Well, Robbie's my go-to track guy. I would take him at his word.
I believe him. And just
join the club, you know. DA and I both have seen them, so there you go.
Whatever it was had a snout, and it looked like it had evil in its eyes. That's all I know. I guess it could have been a gugway, but if it was a gugway, I'd be even more worried than I was about it being a Dogman.
You know,
they say gugway tracks have claws.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, I mean, with light, what little light we had, you could still see a flash of the snout a little bit. And then, like I said, there was 4 or 5 different sets of eyes, and they were different levels. So
I think that there's a lot of times when you see like that track, if you just do just a quick glance at it, the overall general shape, you know, people, this is what it is. When you start looking at a lot of these things, there's subtle differences, slight differences, just like, you know, that's the first thing that stood out to me is how narrow it was. And I got to thinking about, you know, everyone talks about the raccoon hands and the way the feet are. And I was like, but if you don't sit there and just familiarize yourself and just look at all these things and look at these tracks and compare and contrast them. I mean, look at the difference in the track that your dad took and the one with that Glock magazine beside it. I mean, but at first glance, somebody that really didn't know what they're looking at would just say, "Oh, that's a younger one, or that's a smaller one." So,
whatever it was, it had weight on it too to make that indention. Because Wyatt and I both jumped off the boat, and we didn't make near of indention.
Yeah, I had close to the track to make an indention like that. I mean, I made a little bit of one, but it wasn't as much as that.
Must have missed something. Roxanne said, "Who's going to tell me what?"
They want you to sing a song.
Yeah, they're wanting you to sing for them.
Sing what? I can't carry a tune in the bucket.
But you are so beautiful.
You are so beautiful.
Y'all done lost y'all's minds or something in the chat. Think that about me.
You got to sing it like Steve Lilly does, though.
Y'all hear my accent? Do y'all really want me singing? No.
Hey,
Jeff Yarrington, who's in the chat, he just sent me a picture that he found, and I thought I'd show it to y'all.
I was just fixing to say that, dude. Heck yeah.
You can see a lot of definition in that too. I mean,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a heel down here. We got a definition of toes up here. Pretty wide across the foot. I don't think this is a full grown one. We have the width of the heel and the width of the foot up at the top. That's not. It's probably half again as wide as this foot, and definitely not as long. I mean, longer than this one. So I would just by the depth of this one, the toe definition, and the width of the heel. If I had to guess, I bet this is a juvie. Robbie, what do you think?
I'd say probably maybe teen. I mean, it's definitely not full grown, but that could just be the terrain too. It's hard to tell if that's because the top of it's clear, but it's hard to tell where the bottom of the track actually ends and that just could be the ground. But if it does end back towards the middle of where his foot's at, then I'd say, yeah, that's probably an adolescent, but it could go further back and the ground is not really. Sometimes that's the problem you get in pictures. It's hard, the way the shadows are and things like that. It's hard to tell.
It looks to me like the heel's about here.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But if you go down a little bit further, no, go down, not zoom in, go down closer to the back of his foot. You see how, you see how the shadow kind of curves. Mm-hmm. That could be the shadow could be doing that because that's where the ground is impressed in from where something's standing.
That would be an extremely long and skinny foot.
Yeah, but look at the one we saw that Wyatt had though. I mean, it's possible. So that's what I'm saying. When you take one picture over to the top like that, it's hard to tell with the way the shadows and the way that everything's falling. It's hard to tell everything about the track that you need to look at. But just looking at it, just based on face value, looking at it, I would say that's probably a younger one. And y'all give it up. I ain't singing in the woods. Knock it off. 3D, Casey.
I would think that if that was a full-grown adult, it would be wider.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem to be all that wide. But then again, that's also why we tell people, if you're going to take pictures of tracks, take multiple from multiple angles. I mean, digital images, when you take digital pictures with your phone, it ain't costing you nothing. It's not like you got to go get them developed. So take them from different heights, take them from different angles, from the front, from the back, put something in there for scale. And that really helps a lot with track analysis.
That reminded me of the track that we were talking about, maybe being the Dogman track, Robbie. I kind of got that vibe.
And like I said, just looking at that based on face value, looking at it appears to be a Bigfoot track. It's probably a young one, but I wanted to preface it by saying it's hard to tell that one picture over the top of the way it is, because the way the shadow is lined, it could be masking some of the some of the outside edge of the track. It's hard to tell off that one picture. It does appear that that's what it is though. So Edie, you are not innocent. I've been watching chat and I see you doing just as much as KC and 3D. You ain't innocent.
Looks like 3D Havoc requested you sing Baby Shark.
Picture you mentioned earlier. With Steve in it for scale.
Yep. So that one right there, you can actually kind of get an idea. Oh, that tree isn't as big as it looks like it is with just a picture of the tree.
Bigger on his head.
Let's see, that's way above his head. What is he? Probably 6'1", 6'2"?
Yeah, he's right around 6 foot.
Yeah, that's probably 7.5 off the ground.
Really makes you wonder.
You would think if it was a mountain lion or something, the branches around it would have been busted where it pulled itself up. I know Steve wasn't the only one that was nervous. Wyatt, he didn't like it out there very much either. He kept trying to figure out where the boat was at.
I was keeping calm and collected, but I was texting Rick.
Don't leave. Don't go far.
Stay close. Here you go, Wyatt. We didn't get Richard in this picture because we were already in Coombs Ferry.
Heck yeah. I'm ready to do it again.
My beard's so dang thick. I look like one of the guys from Mountain Beast Mysteries. Mountain Monsters, I mean. Good Lord, I'm glad I trimmed that back. I look like I had a tumbleweed on my chin.
Keeps the bug from eating your face off.
I still swallowed a bunch of bugs, though. God dang, they were thick.
I'll still get you out there at Brush Creek sometime. I still ain't got my boat fixed. I still hadn't got that shaft put in, but I'll get you out there and we'll just
Sounds
sit
good to me, man. I am getting that game.
I can't promise something, but about every single time Wyatt and I go out, something happens in one of those two areas.
Hey, Wyatt, that tabletop picture you took.
Yeah.
Here's the rest of it.
Okay.
That was the campsite.
Right. Well, that tabletop was kind of in a different area.
It was about 10, 15 feet behind where I was standing when I took that picture.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
We got to go back into Coombs Ferry because we took a shockingly few amount of photos and videos. We have definitely got to be better about that on our next outings.
Well, let us get a pontoon and we'll work it. We'll try to get it done maybe one time next year.
Next time we do make a group effort like that, we're gonna change up the roles. Somebody's gonna be shooting video. Somebody's gonna be snapping pictures.
I took a few along, but I didn't get enough.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Well, we had all the equipment. We got in there and we didn't. We just didn't do it. We had GoPros. We had all kinds of stuff to record. We just need to start actually giving somebody the GoPro and saying, "Here, turn it on. Keep it on the whole time we're in the woods."
Yeah, it's kind of hard to remember to do that though. As soon as you guys get off the boat and you start having activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were hearing stuff moving around us in the woods no sooner than we got off the boat.
But that would be another good thing if we had a pontoon. We would have space to start getting ready on the ride over instead of having to just jump out and then being there in the dark and having to turn on lights and eat 12 pounds of gnats and mosquitoes.
One of us will have one next year. It may not be at the beginning of the year, but hopefully sometime next year.
That would be awesome, man.
Hopefully we'll have one by April.
Yeah, there's a lot of places that we could take a pontoon in and really get some good footage and go in some places that I think would get us a lot of good results.
I definitely want to go to Joe Bob with you guys.
And we can get in there by car. We don't have to wait. We can even get in there at night. They just don't like people being back there at night.
I want to get you guys out there to where I had that partial sighting too, and we saw the dog and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to go to all those places, man. I'm excited. I want to get back down to Eureka Springs too. I want to go into that area outside of town, see if I can find some activity, because you were telling me about the folks that had their dogs slammed up against a cabin wall, and I've heard 3 or 4 good stories out of Eureka Springs.
Yeah. I don't know if that was exactly in Eureka Springs. I know they lived around Berryville, so it's either somewhere in Berryville or somewhere outside of Berryville.
They lived on the south side of Berryville,
which is like 15 miles from Eureka.
That's not far.
That same person said his mom also seen something. She was driving away up a hill or something and looked in her rearview mirror and seen something cross behind her on 2 legs.
Supposedly there was a dogman encounter, like an active encounter, not just a sighting. Like it got close to them and they grabbed their kids and got out of there somewhere near Hardy, Arkansas.
That'll be to our southeast.
Yeah, that's a ways away from here.
Yeah, that's over toward Jonesboro. I think there's a lot of places, especially in them hills and hollers, or we could probably get some really good activity.
I'd also like to get you out there where I heard the knocks and had the thing try the doorknob, because
I want to get out there and try recording. Absolutely.
I was talking to another one of my buddies. I'm like, do you believe in Bigfoot or whatever? And I thought I had remembered him telling me this story years ago. And sure enough, he told me the same story. But him and some of his cousins were out there right around that same area riding 4-wheeler. And they had something throw a rock at the 4-wheeler. And he said it had a lot of force when that rock hit the 4-wheeler.
I've heard a lot of stories of them not enjoying 4-wheelers. There was one old boy almost got knocked off of one.
Yeah.
With a rock. Got hit in the chest with a rock about the size of a baseball. Almost knocked him off the 4-wheeler. Cracked a rib.
I would say that rock that got thrown at us that night, if it would have hit one of us, it probably would have killed us. It sounded like the size of a bowling ball when it hit the water. It would have done some damage.
Thank you, boat.
It would have definitely sank the boat.
Then my insurance would have paid off and I got a new one.
We'd have went for a little swim, but
if you got to take on water, just don't make sure it's not in that channel between where we put in and Coombs Ferry, because that water's deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, out there in the middle, what was it, like over 200 feet deep?
Yeah, it's 230 right in the deep channel.
That is not where I want to go in to drink at.
Oh, the water was up pretty high, too.
That lake was way up that when we were there. I mean, even when we put in on Coombs Ferry, the water was like up in the trees.
Yeah. If I knew that boat ramp was on the other side, I would have dropped us off over there.
Yeah, well, none of us knew it was there.
But nobody probably would have got out with the Eyeshine standing there looking at us.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of that Eyeshine and be like, this might not be the best place to put in anyway.
Let's go on around the peninsula.
We might have called it quits at that point if we started to try to head for the boat ramp and there's like 8 or 10 Eyeshine waiting on us.
He's all the time trying to get me to get out of the boat whenever we're having all this activity going. I'm like, nope, I'm not getting out of the boat. I'm scared if you want.
Be up on the way back.
Yeah, he lets me know when I get too close to the shoreline. We need to back up a little bit.
Boy, in LBL, I got a story from a guy that lived in Paducah that he was trolling back into a little slough, and it was on the Kentucky lakeside, and said it was right at dusk, and he wasn't looking for anything. He was just fishing. He was running his trolling motor and just casting his line. And as he got back into this little slough, it kind of had a little jog, and there was a dog man crouched down. Cleaning something in the water. He said he thought it was a fish, but he never really got a real good look at it. He was more focused on the dog man. And when it realized he was there, it came out in the water and was coming for his boat. So he said, forget the trolling motor. He fired up the big motor and got the hell out of there.
All the time telling Richard, I think they can swim.
Well, yeah, we've heard lots of stories of them swimming. And then he said that thing was coming out into deep water coming after him because he said I wasn't up close to shore. He said it was chest deep and still coming, and so I don't think the water's going to slow him down. I said you go back over there and fish anymore. He says I don't fish on the LBL side now. I stick close to the mainland.
Well, who was it that you said was tell us about the or was it just a story you heard of? Maybe like a game warden or somebody that was out there and saw a couple get attacked
Yeah, it was worked for I believe it was Kentucky Game and Fish, and he was fishing in the cove there in the bay, right there, Demumbers Bay, and he saw two people who had a camp pitched there, and this was supposedly in the mid '70s sometime. And he saw two people that were getting out of their tent, and there was a dog man coming up behind their tent, and he was hollering and pointing, and they didn't see it. And he said before he could get to shore, it had killed both of them.
That'd be a rough way to go.
Yeah. And I went into Demumbers Bay in the middle of the night all by myself, not knowing that story at the time. And I learned a valuable lesson that night, too. I will not go back to Demumbers Bay alone, even in the daylight. Well, I went back into Demumbers Bay and went down by the water, and I was playing dying rabbit calls on my phone, and I about got surrounded. I trucked back over to my van, jumped in, fired it up, turned on the bright lights, and backed up. And as my my bright beams played out across the woods as I was turning around, there was at least 6 or 8 sets of glowing green eyes pretty high up in the tree. At that point, both butt cheeks were grabbing the seat and trying to build a nest.
The bad thing about Brush Creek and Blair Branch, you go back there so far and you can't run your regular motor because there's so many stumps under there. So you have to troll out of there. I mean,
grab the paddle and start hauling ass. Huh?
Yeah, just kick the troll motor on high is what that's actually what we did. Is I kicked it on high. And you could still hear something walking and howling behind us. And then a little while later, you could hear something on the other side of the lake, like they were communicating back and forth. We've heard growls, howls, tree breaks, knocks, stuff that's, you can hear something, but you can't see it. Yeah, well, that one whistle that night, I whistle loud. I could whistle loud enough to hurt his ears. And, I couldn't even come close to as loud as that one whistle was.
I think coolers.
Yeah, it's so, the echo in there is so good. I clapped my hands and it sounded like a 22 going off. So I whistled and it still wasn't near that whistle that we heard.
Yeah, I'd say you guys were right in something's backyard, and that might have been the dinner bell they were whistling.
When them coyotes sounded off, it sounded like they wanted to feed the dogs too.
Or use the dogs to herd you closer to them.
True.
Just a guy who yaps had a question for all of us. He said, from you and others' experience, Squatch can mimic a variety of animals. Assuming Dogman knows this too, could it be that Dogman come in droves, suspecting it to be a Squatch? That's entirely possible. I mean, yeah, it would make sense. I mean, especially if Dogman pound for pound is not a match for a Bigfoot. If they think there's a Bigfoot in the area, there's going to be a group of them.
Well, that same night that I texted you about the Dogman DA,
mm-hmm.
I had recorded a video, and it was it sounds like owls, but most of the owl sounds, I think it was Coombo that said if it doesn't have a trill on the end of it, it's usually not a real owl. Well, these owls didn't have the trill on them. I mean, they sounded pretty close, but when I was listening real close, I couldn't hear the trill. And funny you should say that about, or he should ask that about them thinking Dogmen coming in, thinking that as a pack, thinking it was Bigfoot. Because when we went around the other side of that cove is where we seen all those 4 sets of Eyeshine. That kind of made that correlation just popped into my head when he said that.
Makes sense. Because, there's the two big block. They're going to come with resources.
Yeah.
I'm convinced they know we're there before we ever get there. And they just, a lot of times I don't feel that they care that we're there, but there's other times that I think that they got their babies around there and they don't want us in there, and they let us know, hey, you need to leave. And
I think they think it's make you leave.
I'm 100% convinced that's what's going on. Because, like I said, a lot of times we'll just hear and see stuff, don't feel threatened. But then there's other times that they let you know, hey, I'm going to do this, and you're going to get out of here.
You guys feel gifting.
Especially when I did that little whoop that night, and something took off up the hill. Like, I mean, it was fast and breaking branches and getting out of it. And then on the other side, we heard that. So, well, let's go.
Can't say that I blame you. What do you guys feel about gifting?
No, all the stuff that I've heard is no good.
I know people that do it, and I don't see any good coming from it. So, if it's an intelligent creature like we believe, then all you're doing is baiting it in and associating it, getting it to associate you with a food. And if it's a predator, the last thing you want to do is get it to associate you with food.
And I've been plenty of times I've told Wyatt, let's throw a fish up here, or let's bring something up here to it, see what happens, see if it's gone, put a camera up here. But I haven't done it yet. I just talked about it.
I think it'd be dangerous, like just like feeding black bears. If you start feeding black bears off your porch, and then one day you don't feed them, they're going to come looking for food.
Well, he'll get a mouthful of lead. I'd hate to say it, but they would.
Well, boys, it is after 10, and I want to thank you boys for coming on the show tonight. I really had a great time, and we're going to get you guys back on, and definitely want to get out in the woods with you guys again. So I'm looking forward to that, and it's definitely going to be a lot of fun because Coombs Ferry was awesome. I mean, Robbie and I still say it's probably one of the single best outings we've had.
I think you'd really like that Blair Branch and Brush Creek.
Looking forward to getting there. And remind me, don't just sit there and and gawk like an idiot. Start recording and taking pictures.
Well, appreciate you having us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having us on. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure, guys. We appreciate you guys jumping in with us. We're going to start winding things down, folks. We're going to talk a little bit about one of our affiliates, and then we'll kind of wind things down. Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about Scallywag Tactical?
Sure thing. Let me grab my pointer here. This is one of the new blades, and they're starting to roll out a lot of new stuff. This is one of the new tactical line. This is called the Redonda. This is the Tonto. They've got this in Spear Point, and they've got them both in the black satin finish and the finish like DA's got on the crow's nest.
Nest, yeah.
Yep. They are starting to really roll out a lot of new blades. So go check them out. Matter of fact, me and Craig was emailing back and forth the other day, and I think he's probably going to get me a list of some of the stuff he wants me to specifically talk about, because there's a lot of stuff they got coming out, and he's having a problem right now. He can't do his Facebook Lives because apparently you can't recommend people on Facebook from Facebook. You can't recommend them to go to the webpage that sells knives. So he's in Facebook jail. So
Facebook right now, and we're doing it.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Go figure. But anyway, so when I saw that, I sent him a message. I said, hey, just let me know any specific ones you want me to hit up and talk about. Go check them out. Like I said, they're releasing a lot of cool new knives. They've got a whole tactical series, and they're getting better and better. I mean, they've always been good, but there's just everything that's coming out now is just getting better and better. I think the Black Friday sale is still on until sometime Monday.
I believe it is, and
that's site wide, and I think you can get up to as much as 60% off on some things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for some presents for people, now's probably the time to do it. Use code DARoberts10 and get yourself an extra 10% off, because usually when he has a sale, that code still stacks up and works.
And they take Sizzle.
Yeah, and they take Sizzle.
Sizzle's good.
I know.
Robbie's kryptonite.
Yeah. So go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Code DARoberts10 at checkout. Get yourself a good blade. You won't be. I mean, there's plenty of you on here that's already got them. You won't be disappointed. There's not. any of the knives that I've got from them, I've not been disappointed about the money that I've spent on them. They're great knives.
Absolutely.
That's all I got to say about that.
I want to give a shout out to all the people for their great comments. Really appreciate it. Glad we had the experience to get to talk about it.
Thank you guys.
We've got some great comments from the folks tonight. Really appreciate that. One thing I want to talk about before we start winding things down is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure you guys have all heard me talk about it 1,000 times, and that's the 22 a Day Foundation. We're losing 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. The toll that's taken on our men and women in uniform cannot be dismissed. Not just veterans, but first responders as well. So if you've got friends or family that wear a uniform in any capacity, doesn't matter what branch, what first responders, whatever, reach out to them, let them know you're thinking about them, because you never know when your text might be what keeps them off the edge. Because, with your help and by reaching out to those we care about, we can continue to try to get 22 down to 0. So reach out, let them know you care about them. And we've been winding the show up with a toast here lately, and it's something I'm pretty proud of and something I want to continue to do. And so it doesn't matter what you're drinking, doesn't matter if it's water or what have you. If you all raise a glass with us as we close out the show with a toast. It's an old Irish drinking song. It said, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.